Good morning. Today we are going to talk about polymeric structures. So the topics that we will be covering today are the concept of molecular weight, because that's what will actually tell us about uh, this polymeric structure. So concept of the molecular weight we are going to talk about, and then we are going to talk about the chemistry of the polymers, and then the crystallinity, how it actually is affected by the molecular weight, and then we will talk about the tacticity in polymers. That also has effect in terms of the crystallinity in the polymer. So overall we will remain today in the domain of polymeric structure. Now the first thing, whenever we talk about a polymer, is that if you consider a polymer vis-a-vis a metal, what we call is the density of a metallic sample, no matter whatever part of a sample you take, the bulk density and the density at a point hardly differs between one another. The reason being that all the molecules, so to say metallic molecules, are uniformly distributed over the entire volume that it occupies. But the same thing you cannot talk about. Suppose if we consider this to be a polymer, and then if we want to, if you take a small little part of it, let us say the microstructure of the polymer, and then if I want to find out that what is the density of it, that with respect to the bulk density may vary a lot, and the reason is because of the molecular weight of the polymer, and that molecular weight is not a single molecular weight. Why? Because when you look at a polymer, it is hardly ever one single material, but it is actually many modes of many polymerization of units that are actually involved in a polymer. So it is the molecular weight distribution which is important, particularly in polymers like thermoplastics. Now, if there are two types of polymers, I already told you. One is the thermoplastics and another are the thermosets. Thermosets, if you remember, that they have a network kind of structures, right, chemical network. So for thermosets, you cannot really isolate one individual species. So it is more homogenized in that sense, and as a result thermosets has infinite molecular weight. That means there is no sense in terms of defining the molecular weight. But for thermoplastics, which may have, suppose, a long chain, a short chain, a medium chain, again a long chain, so it has many conglomerations of different types of chain lengths, there this concept of molecular weight is very important. Now there are various ways in which we can define this molecular weight. The first one is, we call it number average of molecular weight. So here the way we define is that total weight of all the polymer molecules in a sample divided by the total number of polymer molecules in a sample. So this gives you some kind of an average weight. That means suppose there are 10 number of samples of a particular molecular weight, 5 number of something else, etc., etc. Then you sum up all these weights together and simply divide them by the total number of the sample. However, this dividing all of them by the total number of the sample means you are giving equal weightage to all the species, which is not fair, because some polymers are actually heavier than the other, particularly those which are having very long chain lengths. They are not the same as those which are having short chain lengths. So there is a different concept also for that, that is known as weighted average molecular weight, where instead of sigma mi ni, this we put it as sigma mi square ni, and instead of dividing it by sigma ni, we divide it by sigma mi ni. So that is the difference between the MW and Mn, that in terms of number average we do not give weightage for the heavier molecular weight chains. On the other hand, for weighted average molecular weight MW, we give due weightage to the heavier molecular weight of the samples. Now, there is a third concept which I already told you earlier, that is the degree of polymerization. How do we quantify it? Well, if you know the average average of the molecular weight, that is mn bar, and if you know the unit molecular weight m, then dividing that by mn bar, you are going to get the degree of polymerization dp. One example, suppose you consider polyvinyl chloride. Okay. So, this is a typical monomer of a polyvinyl chloride. As you can see that it is just like methane unit CH4 or C2H4, and then one hydrogen is actually replaced here by chlorine. So, that gives us the polyvinyl chlorine, and the molecular weight of it, if you find it out corresponding to carbons, hydrogen and chlorine, you will get it as 62 gram per mole is the each unit molecular weight. Now, suppose the species we are talking about has average molecular weight of 212,150 gram per mole. So, by dividing this mn bar by the 62 gram per mole, we are going to get the dp, which means on an average you can expect this n to be close to 341 on an average. There can be some which are higher, some which are lower, but in average sense about 340 of such bars or units are actually merging together to form the particular polymer in this particular case. Now, molecular weight plays a very significant role in terms of at least three things. One is, as you can see here, in terms of the strength. As the molecular weight increases, you are getting better strength. Of course, it saturates at a point. As the molecular weight increases, the viscosity also increases tremendously. In fact, in the electrorheological fluid or magnetorheological fluid, that is the technique that is tried to people try to actually control that. So, the viscosity increases as the molecular weight increases, and then the melting temperature also, if you look at it, the melting temperature, that also increases as the molecular weight increases. So, the improvement in molecular weight is good from the strength point of view, from the viscosity point of view, and also from the temperature point of view, that we have to keep in our mind. The next important point, once you know both MW and Mn, is actually the polydispersity index. Okay, we call it PI, the polydispersity index, which is nothing but the ratio of MW to Mn. That's what it is. So, the larger is this polydispersity index, the broader will be the molecular weight of the sample. For example, monodisperse polymer, you have only one species of the molecular weight. So, all chain lengths are equal. So, that means MW and Mn will have no difference, because you have only one type of a chain. So, then the polydispersity index is unity. If you have step polymerization, if you remember what is step polymerization, suppose we have in this container we have the monomers, and then the polymerization is happening. It is happening at many places simultaneously. That is what was our step polymerization. So, in that case, each one of the individual species will not grow unnecessarily very long, because the process of chain making is happening in many places simultaneously. As a result, the MW and Mn will not be different much, and hence it can be typically something like 2 or so. So, it is not much dispersed, less dispersed kind of a thing if there is step polymerization. On the other hand, if there is chain polymerization, then how does it happen? It starts with only one active sites, and then in this polymer gradually these active sites grow. So, as it is growing, you are going to get very large chain lengths vis-a-vis very small chain lengths, monomers, which are actually waiting to be concatenated with this snake. So as a result, you get a much larger number of the polydispersity index. So if suppose the first of all the M the number average or Mn, that's is very high in comparison to the MW, and if suppose your Mn is here and MW is somewhere here, you may say that the difference is so high that it is actually chain polymerization that is happening in the system. On the other hand, if they are very close, then you may say that it is like a step polymerization that is happening in the system. So there is a small example here. Let us try to do it so that we get an idea that how to find out the number average molecular weight and the weighted average molecular weight. So suppose we have here a total number of samples which are like 100. If you actually add up all of them, sigma Ni, you will get it as 100. For each one of them, you have the mass of each molecule available with you. Suppose the first one we take. It is with only one sample, so you know what is Ni Mi, and you also know what is Mi square Ni. Similar thing I can do for 3 and we get it. We can do it for 10 and we get it. We can do it for 20 and we get this. Like that, if I complete the table, I am going to get two things. One is sigma Mi Ni and another is sigma Mi square Ni. So once I get this, and also I know sigma Ni, so I can find out what is sigma Mi Ni by sigma Ni, and that gives me a Mn bar which is like 500,000 for this gram per mole for this artificial polymer, and for Mw I got it as 741 500 gram per mole. If I find out the polydispersity index, it will be something like 1.48. What it means is that this is a case of a step polymerization. Okay? So because the Pi is not very high. So this is a typical example which shows you how to calculate the average molecular weight, the number average as well as the weighted average molecular weight. Now we talk about chemistry of the polymer molecules. When all the moles are the same, that means all the units are the same, then we call that kind of a polymer to be a homopolymer. So there are such similar examples here, as you can see, of homopolymers like polyvinyl chloride. Okay, all units are of vinyl chloride. When there is more than one type of mer, then it is a copolymer. Again, for copolymer there are 3 or 4 various varieties of it. Suppose you have one mer and then it is another one grafted together, then it is a block copolymer. Suppose you have it in such a manner that one then the other in a randomly attached manner samples, then it is a random copolymer. And suppose it is like our protein sequences like ATGC, so one unit then the other repetitive type, then it is a alternate copolymer. So we can have 3 types of copolymers: block copolymer, random copolymer or alternate copolymers. The other thing is that if you have only 2 functional sites, then it is a bifunctional unit, 2 active bonds. If you have 3 active bonds, then you get a trifunctional unit. So naturally, if you have more active bonds, you can actually form more network structure, and which is important for network polymers. Now we will talk about the possible physical states for polymeric materials. Now in case of metals, for example, you have generally not under random conditions or very extreme conditions, where you can have a very cold state or you can have a plasma state. If you exclude that, generally you get 3 states: the gaseous state, the liquid state and the crystalline state. However, the difference between this material and the polymers is that here you get more number of states inside the solid state itself. You can get in the solid state the partially crystalline solid state, you can get the viscoelastic state, you can get highly elastic state, or you can get a highly amorphous state, which is glassy state is actually highly amorphous. So, depending on the degree of crystallinity, because for polymers having a complete crystallinity is kind of impossible. So, it is generally always partially crystalline. Now, out of that partial crystallinity, it can be like the the polymer is more close to elastic state, then it is a highly elastic state. It can be that the polymer is totally amorphous, then it is a glassy state, or it can be in between the two. That means it is like a viscoelastic state. So, these are the various variations, and all happens because how the polymeric chains are folded against each other. Now, most of the polymers, their chain lengths are so long that they do not stretch out fully. Instead, they fold back on themselves after going straight a short distance, somewhat like this. Okay. So, we can like if we in a macro scale, if we try to look at it, it can be something like this. As you can see that the polymer is not very long and it is actually very nicely folded on each other. So, you have folds of each one of them. So, this is a regular folding, which means this type of a regular folding can actually generate crystalline structure. What is the other possibility? That is simply that you have something like totally messy. There is no regularity in the folding at all, something like a clumsy hand of nature, as if it made all the things together. This is a totally amorphous one. So, you can have in a typical polymer a variation of the two. That means some part is messy and some part is nicely folded. Depending on if this part is more, then you get more crystalline kind of a polymer which has much higher better mechanical properties in some sense, or you can have totally grassy one which has a different set of mechanical properties altogether. So, that is a kind of an analogy that this is the regular folding, and in most of the lamina cases that the regular folding gets lost beyond a certain length, and this actually starts the amorphous regions. So, if I actually look at it, that you may get something like this, that there are these regular foldings and there are these amorphous regions. The whole thing together sometimes may look like something like a wheel, and you get something, if you consider all the things together, you get something like a spherulite, where you have partly crystalline and partly amorphous phase together in the sample. Now, what is the implication of it? Why I am talking so much about crystallinity? Actually, higher crystallinity signifies that you have higher density of the polymer, you have more strength, you have higher resistance to dissolution and softening by heating. So, in short, many of the mechanical properties actually improves if the crystallinity is high. If you get more of these orderly folded regions, the crystalline regions. But remember that no polymer is 100% crystalline. There will be some amorphous part in it. If you look at the degree of crystallinity, completely amorphous is one stage and about 95% crystallinity is the another extreme. Not 100%, but 95%. In comparison to that, metal specimens are almost always entirely crystalline. And in comparison to that, ceramics are either totally crystalline or totally non-crystalline. Now, metals, I told you that in today's context, you can actually make metals to be glassy also, but that means the cooling is to be done so fast that the metal would not get any chance to form the crystalline structure. And I told you that that is what we call it as bulk metallic glass, which is like, mostly amorphous in terms of the structure. So apart from this extreme case, metals are generally completely crystalline. For the same material and the molecular weight, due to cross packing, naturally the packing, if it is more better, so you get the density better. So density of crystalline polymer is higher than the density of the amorphous polymer. Now the degree of crystallinity, how do we change it? Of course, one most important point is what is the rate of cooling. If the cooling is rapid, then you get lesser time for alignment, you get more amorphous region, poorer is the crystallinity. The other point is, what is the chain configuration? Do you have side branch or cross linking? If there is side branch or cross linking, it will be more difficult to fold it. So the more the restriction to folding in the chain alignment, lesser will be the crystallinity. That is why we always see whether the polymer is a linear polymer or not, because linear polymers have high degree of crystallinity. Most network and cross-link polymers are almost totally amorphous, as you can see here, that network or cross-link polymers, since it is very difficult to fold them or give any regular structure, so they are generally totally amorphous. So that sense, we can say that thermosets are actually more amorphous than the thermoplastics in general. Okay. Now, one last thing that we want to touch today is the tacticity in the polymers. So here what happens, the molecular weight even though remains the same, but in the side chains, as you can see in a polymeric chain, this is the main chain, main carbon chain, and then you have the side chains. The side chains, which are often quite heavy, sometimes will be in only one side of the main chain. We call it to be isotactic. Sometimes the side chains will be actually one in this side and another one in the other side, like that it will happen, and we call this to be syndiotactic. Sometimes it can happen that it is completely random, one here, then two here, one here. This is totally random, we call it to be atactic. So for this type of polymers, which is isotactic, the crystallinity is very high, because it's the heavy side chains are only in one side. Syndiotactic also folding is possible, but atactic folding is very difficult. As a result, these are poorly crystalline. These are poorly crystalline, and isotactics are highly crystalline. That's the tacticity in the polymers. So some highly crystalline polymers are like polypropylene, syndiotactic polystyrene, nylon, Kevlar and Nomex. Many of them like Kevlar or Nomex, they are used for bulletproof jackets, so they are already very much known for their high strength. And in the highly amorphous category, there is this PMMA, acrylics, atactic polystyrene, polycarbonate, polyisoprene, etc. So these are some of the variations of the highly crystalline and highly amorphous polymers. How do we define the crystallinity? Well, for that you need to know three things. One is the density of the specimen we are talking about, the density of the totally amorphous form of that polymer, and density of the perfectly crystalline form of the same polymer. So then by using this particular equation where you find out what is the density difference in the two cases, and rho C and rho S, you can find out what is the degree of crystallinity of a particular polymer. So, this is where we will put an end. In the next lecture, we will learn about glass transition temperature, experimental methods to determine TG, and the factors that affect the glass transition temperature. Thank you.